Oh my God, like how in the heck can I please this woman and this man and all the millions of people out there?
Wow.
What's up, everybody? So, welcome back. As you know, my name is Michael Stevenson, or as you should know by now, my name is Michael Stevenson. So, I am a writer, struggling writer, but a writer nonetheless. I want to be an actor, director, producer, all that good stuff. And so, these are my entertainment industry videos. Again, if you haven't checked out the introduction video to either this channel or specifically to the entertainment industry part of this channel, then please do go check that out. Again, as I've said in those videos, I am trying very hard to not be super duper hard or tough on literally everybody as it pertains to the industry, but I do think that literally all of us have some responsibility in how entertainment is, I guess, unfolding these days. So tonight I wanted to talk about a little bit of chastisement, so to speak, on you guys, on the fans. So if you go to some of the other channels here on YouTube, then you will find that one of the first things that they say is that, the worst thing that you can do is to blame anything on fans. Don't blame the fact that a movie didn't do well or the fact that a TV show didn't do well or what have you on fans, because that's the worst thing that you can do. You're going to alienate the fans, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Well, again, in my entertainment industry video introduction, I said that I had nobody that I was going to leave out of this thing. So, people within the industry, people outside the industry, and specifically us as consumers. And so talking about consumer expectations is one of probably the biggest things that we can discuss together here about how it is that they are molding films. So I know what some of you are probably going to say. Some of you are probably sitting there saying, our expectations are not really that high. They're very easy. I hear this a lot. All that I am going into a movie or a TV show for is to be entertained. Is that so hard? The answer, my dear, is yes. It is incredibly difficult. So to start with, I've already said this in previous videos, but actually making anything, actually creating art or a piece of entertainment is incredibly difficult to do. Yes, it seems like it would be super easy, and especially now since we have a huge, almost sort of cottage industry in which they do this the exact same thing here on social media, right? Pretty much all of social media is nothing but creating entertainment for other people. But doing it on a professional level is incredibly difficult to do because of the fact that you have so many other barriers and so many other people who want to give their 2 cents on the way through the process. And so basically what happens, as we know, is that an artist or the originator of the idea comes up with the idea, and then they have to go through this long process of turning an idea that they had generally that was for themselves, to entertain themselves, or to, I guess, express something deep within them. They have to turn that idea, which is super personal, into something that people outside of not only them, but their friend group, their immediate group of influence, they have to turn that into something that those people will actually like and enjoy, let alone pay to see or to consume. And that can be super difficult. So starting with the idea that the only thing that you want to do is to be entertained, we then have to define exactly what that means. Like, what does it mean to be entertained? And of course, every person has a completely different or a slightly different meaning to what that entails. Are you going to a movie to laugh predominantly? Are you going to a movie or a TV show to see something that you've never seen? Are you going to for escapism? Are you going because you want to see how this thing explores some new and inventive idea? Are you going for mental enrichment, right? Or are you going for spiritual enrichment? Is going to enrich your mind or your soul? There's a lot of different things that a lot of creators have to try to hit in their little pieces. So what tends to happen is that the consumer will say, like, I just want to be entertained. And then they will come away from something and they'll have a bunch of gripes in the similar way to how I essentially have them now. And they'll say, well, I wasn't entertained by the movie because the movie didn't hit this, and this. And so it goes from just wanting to be quote unquote entertained to, well, these are the 20 plus things that they should and or could have done to entertain me. That's a lot, right? Like, that's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of stuff. So I want to start with the first thing, being, I guess, sort of mentally enriched. So in one of my books, it's entitled The Knowledge of Fear. It's currently available on Amazon Kindle, so it's only as a digital ebook. I will try to get it into a physical copy later on this year so that you can buy it. Please look out for it. It is a mystery, like a psychological thriller / mystery, okay? In it, one of the lines that I have is that, and I'm paraphrasing myself here, because it's about a killer. Serial killer is essentially on the loose, and he's been killing young girls for almost 20 years, give or take a few years there. The idea behind it is that they can't figure out who actually is doing all of these murders. And so at some point, one of the characters says that that's kind of the trick, isn't it? Is that a good serial killer or a good story has to be a very sort of Goldilocks type of thing that artists have to do. Is that if the story is either too smart or if it takes itself too seriously, then in general, the consumer, you guys, me, myself, that story will not fully resonate with the majority of audiences. And in fact, it might not resonate with almost anybody. Because people will say, oh, you know, it's almost an insult because it's trying to reach for something a little too highbrow, to where it's like, oh, you're basically treating your audience as if they are, I don't know, it's hard to define what the audience feels when they see something that thinks of itself too highly. Right? We just know that we don't like it. On the flip side, if something is too dumb or stupid, and this definitely almost always applies to and for mysteries, if the mystery, let's say, is too easy to figure out, then we also hate that too. And the reason why is because we feel that it is an insult to our intelligence. Right, so if we start reading something, it's like, oh, we know who did it, page 1. Then we get to the end, and it's like, yeah, you know, this is the person who did it. That feels like an insult to our intelligence, and that was too easy. So we have to, as artists and as entertainers, we have to ride this very thin Goldilocks line of both not being too smart or too full of ourselves, and at the same time not being too simple either. We can't be too simplistic about our things either. Which, again, when you think about it, in practice, in theory, it is easy. But in practice, it is incredibly difficult. It is an incredibly difficult thing to do. This is especially true because of the fact that a lot of modern audiences and a lot of modern consumers, one of the first things that they say is, and one of the first things that they come out with is that they want something that is either new, it feels new, or it is smart to them. Like the smart thing is kind of a big problem. I'll talk about the new thing in another video, but the smart thing is a big problem because of the whole idea of it might run into this idea or this brick wall that says, okay, this thing was trying to be so smart that it screwed the pooch, that it missed the target, whatever sort of cliche you want to use there. So again, it can be smart, but it can't be too smart. It can be dumb, but it definitely can't be super duper dumb or super simple. That's probably the first thing about consumer expectations that maybe potentially need to change. Just slightly. Maybe we need to widen our horizons just a little bit so that we are allowed to, even if we think that something is pretentious, that we're allowed to say, like, okay, maybe it's taking itself a little bit too seriously, but I can still enjoy it even though it's doing that. So then we have the second thing. So the second thing in consumer expectations is the idea of, I guess, the trailers. Look, I'm going to talk more about the trailers and all of the weird, just sort of controversy about trailers as of late in the last, wow, it's been over half a decade now. So I'm going to talk about that in another video. But essentially, all I just wanted to say here is that the trailers for both movies as well as TV shows have become so much, right? It's a lot. They have become almost in and of themselves their own drug, so to speak. They bombard you with these micro dopamine hits that it is difficult to then have that experience translate over to the screen in any sort of meaningful way. Or to put it bluntly, it's going to be difficult for a great many movies and or television shows to actually live up to the advertisement that they've put out. It's almost difficult for pretty much anything to live up to the advertisement of how it is these days. I don't know why this is, and I think maybe we need more psychological, not experimentation, but study on this. But I think that for whatever reason, I think I have this hypothesis that when we see things through a screen, regardless of what they are, when we see things through a screen, we are more inclined to have stronger reactions to seeing those things. If we see some sort of image that is supposed to garner fun or a fun reaction from us, I feel like we are more inclined to have that specific reaction to fun than we are inclined to not have it or to just be apathetic to it all, to not be bothered by it. I have no idea why that is. But again, when we're looking at some of these trailers, the trailers they just look so immensely fantastic. And they are the things generally that are setting our expectations for the stuff as we go into it, whatever it may be, again, film or a television show. But I feel like in some aspects, they're kind of setting our expectations far too high. This is more so about us than it is about the industry. But I definitely feel like we are halfway the problem, because I feel like we don't actually like to put a restriction on our own expectations anymore. And I don't know if that is a human thing or if it's just a societal thing, but it almost feels like once we expect something to be, we can never expect something to be good or even average anymore. We expect things to be either fantastic, phenomenal, A plus on a test, or we expect things to be really, really bad, super goofy, super stupid, super whatever, and F on a test. There's almost no in between there. There's a constant state of overindulgence, but there's also a constant state of extremism, right? So we see extremism literally everywhere. No reason for it to not be in our entertainment and our entertainment choices, I suppose. The trailers and the commercials that we see really, in some strange way, in almost like a political kind of way, they are almost akin to what like an Alex Jones or a Fox News or something like that, to where they want to drum up a whole lot of emotion really, really quickly and get us so extremely buzzed about this one thing that it's near impossible to live up to that adrenaline hit that you got for a minute, 30 seconds, 2.5 minutes, however long the trailer was that you watched. So I think that we need to be cognizant that, yes, the industry most definitely needs to change the way that they do trailers, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the trailers are giving us an outsized reaction, emotional reaction, in a similar way to how other things would normally give us reaction that are far more important in life. And I think that if we do that, then we can learn to more effectively adjust our expectations for some of these things that are coming out. And so then the final thing, or at least the third thing, and like I said, this is not all of what I wanted to talk about for this particular subject of consumer expectations, but I'm trying to make these videos shorter. I'm also trying to talk a little faster, but I have a sort of southern drawl or lazier enunciation. But here we are. The third thing I want to talk about is the fact that almost everything is an IP, is an existing intellectual property. And I think that that also greatly affects our expectations and where we think that these expectations should be. Having almost everything be based on an existing intellectual property, something that already exists in some other form, some other medium, is incredibly constraining to the artists and entertainers working on this particular thing. But then on top of that, it also sets our expectations in a bad way, in a negative way, more than in a positive way. I compare it in a strange way to like a tough coach who is coaching like their son or their daughter or something. Like we've all seen those cliche athlete stories or sports movies or what have you, in which the coach says that they go tougher, they go harder on this one specific player because they know that this one specific player is better than everybody else. So they have to coach them a different way. They have to be tougher on them to try to get everything out. I feel in some ways that is similar to what all of these IPs are with our expectations. Because we already know that the intellectual property exists and we've already seen it or we've already read it or consumed it in some other medium, our expectations are even higher because we know, or we think we know, the potential of that intellectual property. Like, it has to be this, it has to be that, it has to hit all of these notes, and then it also has to surprise and dazzle, and just in general has to be even better than my expectations. It's weird because, say, I don't know, the next Superman movie. We have seen Superman movies before, right? So if a Superman movie came out now it can't just be, it honestly can't just be a good it can't just be a good movie. We have to judge it on whether it is specifically a good Superman movie. And then on top of that, because we have basically this whole grading rubric, we compare everything that we think we want in a Superman movie to the movie. Like, okay, did it have this version of Superman specifically? Did it have, did Superman do this thing that we love more than any other power of his that he has, etc., etc.? It sets our expectations so incredibly high that it's hard to really allow for something to breathe and become its own thing. And I think that that is, to a great extent, I think that allowing for some of these things to become their own thing, separate from the expectations that we build up, is going to hopefully lead to better entertainment. Because when you are making a product to, I guess, either self-express or to actually try to be super entertaining, rather than making a product that has a list of demands that it needs to hit, I think that the product is always going to be better when it doesn't have a list of demands that it needs to be hit. Now, you guys understand that? So again, this is a short video. I know I'm rambling in that one. It was very clunky, hard to understand some of the points that I was trying to make, but I'll have some other videos where I make points that are a little bit better than that. Okay, so I still don't have a sign off, so there you go. Hey everybody, so while I don't have an official sign off yet, I guess I should do the whole please like, comment, share, and if you so desire and you want to see more, subscribe. But more importantly, I will ask that you please go and purchase one of my books. They are mostly ebooks, and pretty much they are all under $10. See if any of my work is actually any good, if it lives up to any of the things that I'm talking about here on my channel, specifically with the entertainment industry videos. So please go purchase my books. All of my links are down below. Thank you.